Today's video, we're going to talk about PMax competitor campaign strategies that you could use to get where you're showing up next to your competitors' items where you're supposed to show up for the maximum return on your ad spend. If you're selling goods and you're doing PMax to run shopping placements, which is what you should be using it exclusively for, otherwise standalone campaigns, search campaigns, YouTube campaigns, and so forth would be a better bet, as I've talked about in other videos. But PMax runs shopping placements better than you could run shopping placements through a standard shopping campaign. The key to make those placements work at the highest level possible is showing up for items that are pretty much directly identical to what you have, because if people are looking for those competitor items, they would likely buy yours. Or at the very least, when Google's already knows who the customer is for your competitors' items and you show up next to them, you're basically piggybacking on the budget of your competitor that's already spent thousands and thousands of dollars over time to figure out who the ad should be in front of for each person individually, searching for each of their items. You show up next to them and then you've just tapped into the customer flow without having to go through all the learnings that they did when starting up their campaign. There is a way to do this to where if you have XYZ item and these three items here are your direct competitors that your other competition is selling, you can have every single time those items show up for those competitors, you can show up next to them using these strategies I'm going to cover on this video. Ultimately, I'm going to tell you not only how to do that, but how profitable this is. If you sit at the end of the video, I will have a case study here where we'll go through the numbers of how well this actually worked for a manufacturing part supplier where it works extremely well. We're talking tripled or more the profits of the ads, just simply doing this one strategy, which is your top strategy you could basically use for something like that in many/most other markets, if you will, unless you're selling, unique items, something like that. And even then, they usually have direct competitors that you'd want to show up in front of or for. So I will go over all those details on this video. Before I get into the content though, if you do not know who I am Corey Zyman, owner of Guaranteed PPC, an online advertising agency that specializes in guaranteeing results for their clients. That is, we do not charge our clients management fees until we can get them a certain minimum lift in the profitability, basically in excess of the management fees that we charge. We are the only agency out there who offers any kind of similar contingency guarantee, which should tell you something about the quality of the information on today's video. So with that said, getting into the content here. With PMax in wider or more common niches, your success really just depends on showing up near your competitors' items on an item by item basis, of which partially gets done through, if you have GTIN or MPN numbers on your product feed, you can kind of get this done quickly and efficiently, especially when you compare that with the correct product category that needs to be applied to each item so Google understands what that item is as well. I just made a video about correcting the product category and making a lot more money, as is talking about how important the GTIN and MPN number because you're going to tap into the data of your competitors who actually already advertised those items before, if you will. Now, though, the GTIN and MPN number is great for branded items. When you sell, a Nike Air Swoosh sneaker, and so does your competitor, you show up any place that their ad is showing up and tap into some of that sweet return there. That's great. But if you sell items that are unique, they're not branded items, then your best bet is to show up against your competitors' items that are in the same price category, do the same things to get the same kind of instant results. And the way that you do that is one of the two methods that I'm talking about here, one of which definitely works better than the other. But before I get into those methods here, I just want to say already, if you haven't subscribed to this channel, you absolutely should, because all the information about how to make money with ads and make truly millions of dollars a year running ads for your business is on this channel, because I physically spend 40 hours a week doing ad strategy at our firm to find out what ultimately works and doesn't work with ads online. And I spend my weekends sharing what that is to be able to give you this information that I share on this channel. And it's unique in that either people run ads and they don't make YouTube videos, or they make YouTube videos and they don't run ads. So you're actually getting information straight from the source on this channel. It's the best information I know on YouTube as well as online on how to make money with ads, because I look around for information myself. So if you haven't subscribed to this channel and that's your goal, you should subscribe already. Do it right now so you actually have have your hands around what's working. Furthermore, though, if you like the channel already, you can find my blog on my site at guaranteedppc.com/blog. On my blog, you can find step-by-step information on how to actually get the results we're using and getting through the guaranteed strategies we have at our firm to guarantee clients results as well, with the screenshots, with the step-by-step instructions, everything needed to use them. So if you like the channel, you should check the blog out. It's just as good. If you have any questions, by the way, about anything I'm covering here or any marketing or ad related question for that matter, you can always leave me a comment below. I get back to every single person who leaves me a question or a comment on this channel, usually within 24 hours time. So getting back into the content here. So here are the two ways that you actually show up for your competitors or next to them, given that the shopping placements, there's 8 slots, right? Or at least 6 sometimes, so that if competitor A that has item that directly competes with, your item over here, how you show up every single time this item shows up, your item shows up, is the following. One is you seed your product titles. I've talked about this in other videos before. So let's say you have a product that's named the Tatum golf bag, okay? What you're gonna need to do this is you're gonna have to put in a good old-fashioned spreadsheet, every item that you sell, and then have someone that you pay to do research and find every directly competing item for every single item you sell and put that into a spreadsheet so that you could take the product title, add a horizontal bar at the end of it, and then start listing your competitor items at the end. Not RJ12, not, the Ping golf bag, not. This is something that I mentioned that people knew for years on classified websites like Craigslist to get more views on it. You put everything that directly competes with a car. If you were going to advertise a Toyota Camry, you, of course, put Honda Civic on your page because you're going to show up in the right search results then. This is basically the same thing here. And you're just applying it to shopping place. People sometimes don't like to do that though because it makes their title look junky. And you may say, well, Corey, why don't you just take those competitor items and put it in the description? The reality is that works a tiny bit, but it's nothing like putting it in the actual title. Google uses the title more than anything to know where your ad should be placed. And once it's in the title, like that, it seems like it always shows up right away. So you can try that stuff if you'd like, or maybe put it buried within the bottom of the description on your product pages itself, but you're not gonna get as good of an effect. Or if you like what's happening with the title, but you aren't getting quite the effect you want yet, put it in the description, put it in the, the product feed description on the feed, and then on the website as well, similar to that. And then you'll get a bit more, as what we found. But that is your first way to get your product showing up next to your competitors' products, an immediate increase in conversions for your shopping placements. The second way to do the same thing or achieve the same thing is you have different asset groups for each item that you have, and then you add your competitors' product names to the search themes itself. So you create each item. I know this sounds crazy, but it works extremely well. Each item that you sell, instead of having one asset group with all your items in it, you have one asset group per item. And then when you edit the signals for that asset group, search themes box, you put your competitor names in there. So essentially what Google's gonna do is only have your ad show up when somebody types in one of those competitor names, okay? Of course, if you're running a feed-only PMax setup where you don't put your headlines, descriptions, any of that, and you just upload your product feed itself, essentially all that's gonna happen is you show up in the shopping placements when your competitor, somebody types in your competitor name, or at least it will do that in addition to some other stuff, but then eventually the other stuff, will be weeded out through the smart bidding algorithm and realizing that those other placements don't actually get a high conversion rate and it's weeded out over time versus you guiding it by giving it the competitor names because you did all this research. It'll right away see that those are good placements that converted a high rate and just keep showing your product there in those search results specifically. So that's the other main way that you make sure you show up in the highest, most profitable placements on the search results. That is, people already type in your competitor names. In addition to that, where your competitors' products are showing up now, then you start showing up next to them. So if you're selling pottery wheels, if they are, that competitor already advertises heavily on pottery wheels, Google will then take your product and make sure it shows up next to that competitor's item when someone's typing in pottery wheels as well, okay? So this particular second method is the better method, as I found, because it'll actually get you not only just showing up for people typing in your competitors' product names by name, but also in other search results that are not the competitor's name, but in places that they just simply show up, like I mentioned just a second ago, okay? Your best effect effect of all, if you were already doing number 2, would be to do number 1 as well and get even a greater, stronger effect showing up like basically 100% of the time or close to that for competitor searches and places that your competitors show up right now. But with all this said, very few people are going to do this strategy because they don't want to do the research and find all the competing items for each item that they sell, especially if they have thousands of items. They're going to say, oh, screw that, I'm not going to do that. And you'll probably be the only one in your niche market doing it. Even if I told everybody in your niche market to do this, they're still not going to do it. I can tell you from personal experience, people are very apathetic. What people want when they say they want to make money with ads is to click a couple buttons and they're making money. And any of those strategies that are known about, there's no opportunity there because everybody else knows about it and does it too. You make most of your money in PPC, frankly, not just by doing more research, but that plus putting in the work to actually execute things that your competition's not willing to do themselves. Like this, doing the research, then setting up the campaign structure, which by the way, when you're running PMax, if you're going to do this one product per asset group thing, I would still plan on breaking my PMax campaigns down by product category. So if you sell home furniture, couches just gets its one campaign, area rugs gets another, and so forth. And then within that, you're going to have your products listed there. So that way you get the best kind of results. And also because, as I mentioned in other videos before, it's easier to scale that way because there's certain categories that will do better quicker. And you want to be able to raise the budget quicker on those and look at all your product categories and say, okay, this one's converting the best. So when I'm going to raise the budget 10% this month because the money's coming in overall. Let's do it on this category versus this. You have more control over your investment. Because ultimately, when you're selling product, and I've talked about this many times on this channel, you want to do a marketing efficiency ratio analysis on your business on an ongoing basis to see how much you're making and to see if you should scale the next little notch up in that. And most e-commerce businesses do this, whether you do it or not. You find out a ratio of total sales in your company to ad spend, find that ratio that you are happy with. Then you're going to ultimately set your budget knowing that you want that ratio. When you hit that ratio, you're going to raise the ad budget in your company by another 10%. You're going to find the best next place to throw that extra 10% budget. Then you're going to wait for your sales to go up 10%. Then you're going to do it again and again and again. And when you have separate campaigns for different product categories, it's easier to scale because you can identify the best place to put that 10%, not just to throw it out everything equally or universally. That makes sense. So with that said, that's your strategy right there. Number 2 being the best. Number 1 is something that's a little quicker, but it doesn't have quite the effect. Now, before I get into the case study here, I want to also say that if you hate doing this kind of work, you say, Corey, I want these results, but I don't want to do all this work. I mean, that's what our agency does. We do these structures for clients that I talk about on this channel, and we take a fee for doing it, but we don't take a fee until you get an increase in profit from our efforts up front. So, therefore, it pays for itself. It's worth paying for. If you're interested in having us quote you on that and what we could provide in terms of results and for what price, reach out to me at my agency at GaryTPPC.com. I'd be happy to have a conversation with you about it. Similar to that, I have a whole hell of a lot of ad templates available. We've worked in over 100 different niche markets. If we've worked in your market before, we can literally sell you the winning ads, landing pages, campaign templates, and so forth that works for your market already, which you copy paste into your ad account. As long as you're in a different country than our client or city, if it's a market like that, you can use the template and we can tell you the results you're going to get with it up front. It's way easier than figuring out all this stuff for yourself and doing all the work to put the structure together on top of it. These templates work so good, because we've optimized them for years in the markets that we're in. And in addition to that, there's really, you're in a market where things are going to work. So if you use a template of ours and we tell you the results, you know that the results you can get with it work. And ultimately, you could start a whole business around just having the template itself. If you want to start a great business, pick one of the 100+ different niche market templates we have, copy paste that into your ad account, figure out a way to do the delivery of that market, that product, service, whatever, subcontracting, drop shipping, whatever, and you have a working business already because the templates are so optimized. So if you're interested in that, let me know. Furthermore, of course, I do coaching and consulting with people. If you don't want a template or we've not worked in your niche market, I can tell you in a 30-minute coaching call or consulting call what why you're not getting to the next level with your ads. Maybe it's your ads are that itself that are the issue. Maybe you have an issue with your pricing strategy. Maybe your issue is with your sales process or lead handling process, whatever it is. I'll be able to help you spot it. I'm very good at finding these problems in businesses and let you know how to get around the issue so you can start scaling your sales again. So with that said, going back and into the case study here. So we had a replacement parts company that had replacement parts for machinery that was in a factory. And of this, okay, our results, number of conversions and ROAS we had on this client's PMax campaign before we implemented the strategy here that I was talking about was 54 conversions in the last 30 days prior to doing this, okay? With the ROAS of 741. So the campaign was already profitable. It just wasn't scaling anymore. I would say probably the better use case for this is to scale instead of just getting the ROI up. Even though you could do that if that's what the stage you're at right now, which is to get profitable so you can scale sustainably, okay? Now, we set up brand new campaigns to run side by side with the PMax campaigns the client had, where we had a one product per asset group model, did all that research I talked to you about, where we could put in the search themes of the audience signals section of those, each asset group within those PMax campaigns. And then we launched it. And then 6 months later, what do you think our results for that 30-day period that we were able to pull out of the account compared to the 30 days 6 months ago with the old campaigns that we had here? How much more conversions, how much more ROAS or ROI did we get here? Well, for one, instead of 54 conversions, we had 392 conversions with those new campaigns added in, that plus the old campaigns together in total. So we're talking over 4x here, almost, over 5x technically. And then in addition to that, our ROAS went from 741 to 816. So our goal with this campaign wasn't to increase the ROAS, it was to scale, of course. And then the products were not showing up in the spots that we knew it should show up for, in which people were searching for a competitor product, in which that was the most obvious thing to do. So in this case, it was extremely profitable. I don't want to say it would be the case in maybe something like apparel, where if you're selling a black dress, you want to show up next to the other black dresses itself, because Google's going to be a little bit better at figuring that out. But the main thing is there's no really direct competitors in that market. There kind of are, but not exactly. It may not work so well, obviously. You may not get a 5x increase in conversions like we did here, which is an insane amount of extra conversions. Maybe you get a 50% bump. Regardless of the situation, it's always going to get some more conversions. So why would you not want to do it? Other than the fact that you don't want to put the time in, or you don't want to pay someone to do it. But even if you don't want to pay somebody to do it, what I encourage you to do is to set up a new PMax campaign. You don't have to touch your current one, by the way, which makes any downside go away. That is, your results go backwards before they go forwards. But you could do it for 5 items, just literally 5 items by itself. Set that campaign up and just see what happens 6 months later, once the algorithm has had time to kind of test the data that you've given it and scale up that particular data and strategy that you tried to have Google use, or the algorithm use. And then once it works for 5 items, then you now know if you multiply that over your other 5,000 items, you're going to get XYZ return, because you got an XY% increase on those 5 items compared to 6 months ago. You just extrapolate that out. Now you could get behind paying somebody $5-10 grand to go do all the research that you need to figure out what items compete with what items you have and where the ad should actually show up at. In a lot of markets like supplier, there's a lot of markets like that where PMax just aren't going to work at all, or hardly at all, unless you do this, because people are going to see the item and they're going to click through and realize it's not the item for them, because just by looking at the item, you can't tell it's the right thing for them. For a shirt, you can tell, is it for them or not, by looking at the shirt. But when you're talking about a replacement part like this is the strategy that makes the campaign viable, just in general, because you can't tell by the image alone whether you want it or not. And not enough people read the title, even if you make that descriptive. So in that case, it is everything like it was here. That's why it actually increased sales 5x, whereas you might not get that. So to go along with what I said, if you're in a market where you can't tell if this is the item that you're going to need truly or not, or fit your needs until you get to the product page, this is a lifesaver, because it's going to make sure your ad shows up in front of the right people. So almost everybody who clicks through are going to realize this is a valid product for them, or could work. I've got a fantastic idea for you though. If you don't like doing this work, you partner with our agency. We're looking for business partnerships where we'll set up all your ads. We'll give you starting ad spend to work with. We'll give you seed ad money, anywhere between $5 grand and $50 grand worth of seed ad money. And we'll put our strategies and our efforts to use for your business. And in exchange, you give us 1 to 10% of the increase in sales growth in your company, and we'll grow your company to infinity after that. We'll be part owners in your business, but we'll handle everything as it comes to your ads and scale you at least 10x higher than what you are over the next 5 to 10 years. We've done this with several companies so far at our company, of which I can name drop and give you the exact names of the people at the companies doing it, which you could cross-reference and ask them how much their sales went up and see they're confidently that we can do this for you as well. Assuming that we know we can get you results and you've got a great product or service that just needs advertising and nothing else, which is what we're looking for. But if you are interested in that, we're looking for new companies to invest in right now, reach out to me at my agency at guaranteedppc.com. With that said, I'll wrap everything up with that. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
Remember when I said PMax campaigns was important during this video? Well, this video here tells you how to do it.